Colin proposed to me the day he became Harbor City's wealthiest man, causing a citywide sensation. To escape the wedding, I jumped into the deep sea right before his eyes on our wedding day. The billionaire Dwight family, with their vast wealth and underworld connections, had their patriarch devoted solely to a deaf woman for over a decade. Everyone thought I was ungrateful. On the day of the proposal, I had just stepped out of the fitting room, ready to tell him my hearing had returned. When I saw him smirking playfully, Miranda, that insatiable minx, had the audacity to crawl into bed with me and Nancy last night. Miranda is the new young assistant by Colin's side. Anyway, the future Mrs. can't hear us. The CEO clearly enjoys having her as an observer. It gets him more excited every time. The shop clerk buried their head in shock, while friends nearby teased without batting an eye. Fought until midnight again last night. Really don't get why you'd marry this older woman when you've got no shortage of women chasing you. Colin's expression suddenly darkened, his tone turning icy and ruthless. I can go without sleep but never without marrying her. Nancy is the only woman for me in this lifetime. Anyone who dares to say one word against her will vanish from Harbor City along with their entire family tree. When he turned to me, his face softened with tenderness again. Nancy, in 3 days you'll be my wife. I lowered my gaze with a faint smile. Yes, 3 more days. I'll be wearing my wedding dress when I jump off that very bridge where I first found him. Feign death before him, leave Harbor City, never to meet again. Colin and Miranda's year-long affair videos have all been uploaded by me to social media, set to release in 3 days. I've always remembered what father told me before he left. Nancy, you must remain unyielding through winter's frost, yet never succumb to its withering. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. As I emerged from the fitting room holding up the enormous train of my wedding dress, Colin was raising an eyebrow at Miranda. How many times last night? Blushing furiously, Miranda bit her lip and answered, 7 times. A chorus of whistles and jeers rose from our friends. Mr. Colin, nothing quite like the taste of young ladies, eh? Colin chuckled as he walked over and wrapped his arm around me, his eyes filled with admiration. Nancy, you're absolutely stunning, he casually spoke while straightening the hem of my dress. Women past 30 are like aged cured meat. No matter how you chew it, there's always that lingering taste, not like the young and tender ones, fresh and juicy, with endless variety. Friends laughed and joked around. I heard Miranda was quite bold last night. Colin kissed my forehead, then turned and asked Miranda with a smile, the office didn't satisfy you, what, still want to make trouble in Nancy's bed? I quietly watched Miranda. She was Colin's newly arrived intern assistant, barely 20, young and tender. Stop it, President. You clearly enjoy it too, you said. Nancy G. I can't hear. And having her nearby makes you feel even more excited. A sharp, intense pain pierced through my chest. I could barely stand steady. His brothers beside him teased him as if it were nothing out of the ordinary. Colin, with so many women in the Harbor City circle throwing themselves at you, celebrities, young models, top-tier campus beauties all at your disposal. Why bother marrying this older woman, a deaf woman, and an orphan at that? What's there to care about? Just have some fun and be done with it. Colin's smile vanished, leaving only a menacing glare. Nancy is the only woman I've ever loved in this life. I'm just finding a plaything to pass the time. If I ever hear anyone say another word about her, their entire family, along with their genealogy, will vanish from Harbor City by tomorrow. Everyone was silenced by his ruthless gaze. Until the room fell deathly quiet, Colin turned around with satisfaction. He took out the enormous diamond ring from his pocket and slipped it onto my ring finger, gazing at me with deep affection. Nancy, you'll soon be my bride. The media camped outside the window went wild with camera flashes upon witnessing this scene. The bustling chatter reached my ears. Nancy is so lucky, a nearly 30-year-old spinster, deaf and an orphan, yet she managed to catch the richest man in Harbor City. The dream lover of every woman. That's nothing. Yesterday, news came from the auction house that Colin splurged $1.5 billion to buy the world's largest rose manor as a marriage proposal gift for Nancy. Everyone's envious gazes were written plainly on their faces. I should have been immersed in sweet happiness. 20 years of living together day and night. How many life and death moments have we shared? How deeply he loved me. Those memories remain vivid before my eyes, impossible to ignore. Yet now, Colin gazes at me with tender affection, only to say, Miranda, go to the dressing room and take it off yourself. Aren't you envious? I'll let you be a bride for one night. My face couldn't help but turn pale. Colin remained completely unaware, still smiling gently. Nancy, I need to attend to some business matters. I stood there watching his back as he eagerly turned away, feeling as if I'd plunged into an icy abyss. Even though I'd witnessed this scene countless times before, my heart still ached until it went numb. Half an hour later, Colin appeared before me in a fresh suit. He kissed me passionately, his clothes still carrying traces of Miranda's rose perfume. Behind us, his friends erupted in applause and congratulations. "The bride is so lucky. Congratulations to Colin for getting his wish." Colin thanked the media for their invitation to the wedding banquet 3 days later while seeing me off to the car. He considerately opened the passenger door and explained to me, "I still have unfinished business, I'll sit in the back." Miranda naturally slipped in as well, and the two of them sat side by side. I opened the window, letting the cool breeze brush against my face, yet it still couldn't drown out the sounds from the back seat. "President, be gentler, you're tearing the stockings again." "Afraid of what? Can't I afford to replace them?" "Don't move." My tears still couldn't help but fall. Seeing my slightly reddened eyes, Colin stopped what he was doing, as if scalded by something. Panic flashed across his face. "Stop the car." "Nancy, what's wrong?" Colin got out of the car and crouched before me, wiping away my tears. I didn't speak, yet he laughed to himself. "Are you so nervous because you're about to marry me?" Looking at his familiar face, those deep, affectionate eyes, the thin lips curved in a smile, and the refined jawline, this man, the dream lover of every woman in Harbor City, the one I've spent every day with for 20 years, a surge of scorching anger suddenly welled up in my chest. "I hate you so much, Colin, I hate you so much." I wanted to slap you, but my nails dug desperately into my palms instead. "Colin now has vast wealth and influence. If I were to show any signs, he would imprison me," he once said, "whether in love or hate. In this lifetime, I can only remain by his side." I forced a smile and nodded in silent agreement. Miranda suddenly let out a mocking laugh, a deaf girl getting nervous. What could she possibly hear? Smack! Colin slapped Miranda hard across the face, his expression vicious. "Get out. Don't ever show your face in front of me again." Miranda stood frozen in shock, her eyes reddened instantly, her voice turning fragile and pleading. "President, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have spoken that way about Nancy. I was just too jealous of her. Someone as wonderful as you deserves a better match." Colin seemed pleased, his expression gradually softening. He scoffed, staring at Miranda. "If she's not worthy, does that mean you are?" Miranda bit her lip and spoke stubbornly. "At least in bed, I'm worthy. Go back and take a shower. Wait for me obediently." Suppressing the nausea rising in my stomach, I turned my face to look out the window. The car started moving again. The icy wind lashed against my face. It hurt so much. I kept reminding myself, 3 more days, Nancy, just hold on a little longer. Colin was someone I picked up when I was 8 years old. Dad and I had a fried rice stall on Harbor City Island Bridge. Colin had been wandering nearby for a long time. Every time the food stall closed, you could see a child bundled in tattered cotton clothes devouring the leftovers from customers' fried rice plates. According to bystanders, his mother was a songstress who secretly carried the illegitimate child of a Harbor City tycoon, yet gained no benefits from it. Mother was taken to the Philippines by the first wife. The child became an abandoned orphan, wandering everywhere. I was also adopted by Dad. Though we lived in a shack, Dad made sure I was well fed and clothed. He treated me well. I didn't dare say those words, but every time we closed the stall, I'd secretly leave extra fried rice in the corner. Dad pretended not to see. The change came when I was 9 years old. I was too short, and while standing on tiptoe to stir-fry rice, oil splattered onto a wealthy lady passing by. Dad frantically took over the walk. He begged the shopkeeper uncle to carry me away. That lady's husband was notorious in the underworld. That very night, he gathered a group of men who beat my father half to death. A living, breathing man was gone, all because a single drop of oil had stained that lady's fur coat. The night passed. Once again, I became an orphan. All that remained was Dad's fried rice stall and the 10,000 yuan in compensation from the mistress. I often suffered from sleepless nights, tormented by guilt, while stir-frying rice. I often get burned by the hot oil when I lose focus. Once, in a moment of distraction, a pot of scalding oil nearly poured over me. Colin rushed over from the corner and pushed me down. The boiling oil seeped through his tattered cotton-padded jacket, leaving large burns on his back. Upon entering the hospital, he was in such pain he nearly passed out. Later, when the wound healed, a massive scar still remained on his back. From that moment onward, I made up my mind to take him home. I thought, one person alone doesn't make a home. With 2 people, that should be enough, right? Colin was 3 years younger than me, but taller and more robust. On Harbor City Bridge, We called each other brother and sister. I set up a stall to fry rice, while he cleaned the dishes. That's how we grew up, relying on each other for survival. Those were the hardest times. I took Colin to school. Because of his delicate features, he was constantly bullied by the troublemakers in his class. Every day he would come home covered in bruises. When I asked about it, he just grinned and said he was being naughty, that he'd been in a fight. Our days seemed devoid of honey, leaving only bitterness, yet within days I found myself in trouble again. I refused to leave the fried rice stall that was my livelihood. Beaten up by the new local bully, Colin rushed back just in time. I was left covered in blood in an abandoned factory. The stall was gone too. I was unconscious. To save me, Colin took on life-threatening jobs everywhere. Several times, he nearly lost his life, but even after scraping together every penny, we were still 30,000 short for the surgery. He kept it from me, gritted his teeth, and sold himself out, taking the fall for the underworld. Almost never made it out for life. Later, when the verdict came down, he served 5 years in prison. I'm alive, but my ears have gone deaf. The doctors couldn't find the cause, nor could they tell how long it would take to recover. Colin, when he stepped out of prison, he had grown much thinner and noticeably taller. We hugged each other, crying and laughing together. After recovering from the illness, he secretly went to an underground boxing ring without telling me. Using the dangerously earned money, he moved us to a new place and bought another fried rice cart. He had the photo of me and Dad developed and hung it in the living room. His enrollment photo was cut out and pasted next to ours. He said, "We've moved to a new home. Gotta bring Dad along too." The year I turned 25, he made a name for himself in the underground boxing ring. He found an excuse to challenge the gangster who had caused his father's death to a one-on-one fight, a single fatal punch, delivered without mercy. With her husband gone, the wealthy widow soon became a target for enemies. Within half a month, he died on the street near my home. Colin stripped the fur coat off the wealthy lady and took me to burn it at Dad's grave that very night. I cried the entire night that day. Colin, with reddened eyes, made the same promise over and over. "Nancy, from now on, I'll give you a good life. Our family won't lose anyone else." I believed it. I truly believed it. Only now do I realize. Forever might just mean a very long time. The car came to a slow stop. Miranda stepped out of the car with flushed cheeks, walking behind Colin and me. "President, guess what I'm wearing today?" She unbuttoned her trench coat, and the driver hastily lowered his head. Colin turned his head expressionlessly to look. "Nancy's lingerie, you little minx." Colin throat bobbed. Suddenly, he let go of my hand, smiled, and patted my head. "Nancy, go home first, okay? I have something urgent to take care of at the company." I quietly agreed and slowly walked toward the villa. In the car behind, soon, the sounds of their exhaustion reached my ears. Standing by the villa window, I quietly watched the ceaselessly rocking car. The phone in my hand rang, and this is Nancy. "Just to confirm, you're sure the suspended animation procedure in 3 days will proceed as planned?" "Confirmed." I nodded, gazing out the window, my eyes devoid of any emotion. There was a pause on the other end. "Understood. 3 days from now, the moment you plunge from Harbor City Island Bridge into the sea, someone will be waiting underwater to assist you. A corpse resembling your physique has been prepared. That same night, a private jet will take you away from Harbor City. Your new identity has also been arranged." "Thank you." I hung up the phone, my fingers tightening uncontrollably. "Colin, goodbye, never see you again." Colin returned late at night. He shook me awake, making hand gestures. "Nancy, come with me. I have a surprise for you." "Did you forget what day it is today?" "How could I forget? My birthday. Ever since Dad left, he's been the one celebrating my birthdays with me." Blindfolded, I was led into a car that drove for what felt like ages before finally stopping. What greeted my eyes was a familiar building, the world's largest Rose Manor. My eyes instantly reddened with emotion. Back then, Colin risked his life to raise my medical funds and was hunted down. Hiding in this Rose Manor, it happened to be my birthday. He knew I loved roses. After I recovered, he brought me to sneak into the manor, where we celebrated the most unforgettable birthday. I never got anything good. That day was one of the most precious birthday gifts for me. The other was when Dad brought me home. At that time, Colin held me while looking at the sea of roses, gritting his teeth as he spoke. "These rich people nowadays are so extravagant, letting such a grand estate go to waste. When I make it big, I'll buy this manor and give it to Nancy. How about that?" I couldn't stop laughing. I'd be over the moon with joy. Colin looked at me with stars in his eyes. "Nancy, someday, I will definitely give it to you. What are you thinking about?" Colin didn't notice the pain in my eyes as he pulled me into the manor. All his friends were there, clapping in celebration for me the moment they saw me. Surprise, the wind is strong tonight. And this estate only finalized its paperwork tonight. Nancy, you won't blame me for waking you up in the middle of the night, will you? Colin thoughtfully took off his suit jacket and draped it over my shoulders. As soon as I sat down, he found a blanket and wrapped me up tightly. Colin bro, Miranda is here. I watched Miranda jog over and habitually sit beside him, wearing sheer black stockings and a tight miniskirt. Miranda isn't cold, huh, tsk. Going all out to seduce Colin. Colin let out a cold laugh. Cold, she'll be having a go with me in the manor later, afraid of the cold. What a born vixen. I stared at my feet. The searing pain felt like it was piercing through my bones, threatening to tear me apart. Colin's friend was still chattering away. If you like her so much, just take her in and keep her, make her your concubine. In all of Harbor City, who doesn't keep a few little playthings besides you, even if your wife finds out? She's got the position of the main wife. What more could she possibly say? Humph. Colin exhaled a smoke ring, his gaze lingering on me with such tenderness. I promised myself that after 3 days, once I marry Nancy, I'll settle down. I won't allow those messy women outside to cause trouble in front of her. If she's even slightly unhappy, I'd blame myself to death. Just some playthings. Why should Nancy give them any face? At my status, countless women are offered to me every year. Having one by my side to play with at any time helped shut their mouths. Nancy is simple-minded. Don't bring these matters before her. Everyone nodded in tacit agreement, their gazes at me filled with teasing and mockery. And then there was Miranda's subtly hostile glare. I suddenly felt so exhausted beyond endurance. I rose and hurried away. Nancy, what's wrong with you? Colin changed countenance and chased after me, seeing my pallid face. He dismissed the driver and insisted on taking me home himself. Back home, I sat on the sofa gazing out the window. The enormous villa felt hollow and empty. Suddenly I remembered the old shack where Dad and I used to live, so small, yet so warm. Noticing my distant expression, he sighed. He, who was always cold in front of others, showed a gentle expression. You're marrying me tomorrow, Nancy. Are you nervous? Think of all the effort we've put in, how many years it took us to reach this day. At last, I can rightfully give you a home. As he spoke, his own eyes reddened. For several seconds, I was on the verge of blurting it out. Yes, how difficult it must have been. So why did you treat me this way? I looked at his face, but my gaze drifted absently into the distance. I know all these big shots in Harbor City keep mistresses on the side. Just last month, Mrs. Ho was telling me about catching her husband's little third. If life has to be like that, I'd rather not have it at all. My voice was incredibly hoarse. After several seconds of silence, I finally spoke. If Colin, you have someone you like? No, I absolutely won't. Colin cut me off and pulled me into a tight embrace. Yet my tears still fell onto the floor. The wind outside the window stung my face, so it was already deep winter. The orange tree that Colin and I planted together in the courtyard, left unattended, had long since withered. He was about to say more when the phone suddenly rang. It was Miranda. He put the call on speaker. That Miranda was slightly panting. President, don't you like me in a wedding dress, before the wedding? Why don't you pamper me one last time as your one-night bride? Colin swallowed hard. Fine, let's go to the sea. I'll call all my brothers for a cruise party tonight. No one leaves sober. I'll pamper you properly, one last time. Colin hung up the phone and looked at me. Nancy, have a good sleep. Tomorrow, you'll be my most beautiful bride. He kissed me gently, and I held on to him. You gave me a manor, and I've prepared a wedding gift for you too. It's in the study, really. Can I take a look? I held his hand. Tomorrow, after we're married. You can see it then. Okay. He laughed with immense joy, just like the day I picked him up and brought him home, and left in a hurry. I watched his retreating figure, standing in the empty villa. Everyone was dismissed. Find Colin's favorite baseball bat, shatter the enormous photo of us hanging in the living room with a single swing, shards of glass scatter across the floor. But I couldn't care less. Throw away the baseball bat. I placed the diagnosis report from a year ago confirming my hearing had returned to normal on Colin's study desk. Started packing my things. 1 a.m. I burned everything in the villa that was related to me. 2 a.m. I sent away the little dog I had raised for 10 years. 3 a.m. I took down that family photo, tore off Colin's picture and threw it on the ground, leaving only me and Dad. I placed the photo album into my suitcase and handed it to the person I had arranged with. For in the morning, the cruise ship staff I had bribed secretly sent me a video. In the video, Colin was rolling on the deck with Miranda. The wedding dress torn and discarded to the side, he was still murmuring in his mouth, Nancy, I love you. I suppressed my nausea and placed the phone along with the video on the desk, pressing it down on top of the diagnosis report, left a note, Colin. Wishing you a happy marriage, goodbye, Colin, hope you like the wedding gift I gave you. 5 a.m. I made a phone call, sell the Rose Manor under my name and donate all the proceeds to Harbor City Orphanage. 6 a.m. I put on the extravagant wedding dress he had bought for $1 billion and took a taxi to Harbor City Bridge. After watching the driver leave, I climbed to the very top of the bridge. A crowd gradually began gathering below. The moment the clock struck 7, Colin, who was supposed to pick me up at the makeup location, Colin arrived late. Last night's revelry ran too late, and he hurriedly dressed before rushing back. While standing on the deck, many people on the bridge were shouting, "Ma'am, don't do anything rash. Whatever the problem is, it can be solved. Come down quickly. Why is she jumping into the sea in a wedding dress? What kind of man could drive her to this? Did she meet a heartbreaker?" The phone suddenly lit up. It's Colin. I pressed answer. Nancy, sorry I'm late because of company matters. Where are you? I'm coming right now. Colin, look at the bridge. I threw away my phone when Colin was just 100 meters away from me. I was like a kite with its string cut. I jumped from the top. The white wedding dress bloomed like a radiant rose in the air. Nancy, no. Colin's eyes widened in horror, watching helplessly as I plunged into the deep sea. Nancy, Colin was like a madman. Ignoring everyone's attempts to stop him, he followed me into the deep sea. The December waters were piercingly cold. As I watched him swim toward me, I desperately retreated. Soon, 2 people appeared before me and took me away. Half an hour later, I boarded a helicopter and left Harbor City. On the surveillance footage, Colin was still immersed in the seawater, stubbornly searching for me. A large group of lifeguards jumped into the sea after him, desperately dredging the waters. Miranda stood dazed on the shore in her wedding dress, frowning with heartache, yet not daring to utter another word. Only then did the people on the shore snap out of their daze. The gossipmongers were utterly baffled. If the bride was the one who jumped into the sea, why is there another one here? Gossipy Dwight family employees also squeezed into the crowd to watch the spectacle. They answered loudly, I know, that's Mr. Colin's personal assistant standing beside him. Pfft, how ridiculous. An assistant wearing a wedding dress sharing a boat with the CEO. I'd jump into the sea too if I were the bride. Miranda bit her lip in embarrassment, yet her eyes betrayed unconcealed delight. Colin had been soaking in the water for nearly an hour. His lips were deathly pale, verging on hypothermia. No one could persuade him to come ashore. I could only watch as his eyes turned bloodshot, calling out my name over and over in the sea. Nancy, where are you? Don't be afraid. I'll save you. Don't leave me behind. Nancy, I was wrong. After saying these words, Colin finally collapsed into the water. At that moment of slowly sinking, he was pulled out by the lifeguard and brought ashore, in the private hospital. Colin slowly regained consciousness. The person I had planted by his side was still dutifully relaying everything to me. Colin didn't utter a single word after waking up, staring blankly at our photo together on my phone. That expression, I'd only seen it on his face once before, when I remained unconscious after being transferred from ICU following the accident. He just stared at me blankly like that, not willing to look away for even a second, afraid of losing me. He held my hand all night without closing his eyes. At this moment, just like the expression he had back then, my chest still ached with a piercing pain. Nancy, have you found Nancy? Colin's first words were asking about my situation. The person before me hesitated and didn't dare to speak. Colin understood. His face turned ashen as he spoke softly. Did you all see that Nancy was pushed down? No one dared to make a sound. The ward was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The atmosphere was nearly suffocating when Colin's chief assistant pushed the door open and handed him a tablet. President, we've retrieved the surveillance footage. Colin took the footage, his eyes fixed intently on the screen. The video showed me alone at 6 a.m., dressed in a wedding gown, stepping out of a taxi. Without a moment's hesitation, I climbed to the top of the bridge. At 7:15, slowly falling from the bridge, Nancy, Colin had bloodshot eyes as he clutched his chest. Barely able to catch his breath, his panic attack had struck again. Colin hadn't experienced his symptoms in a long time, not since he achieved fame and success. The last time it happened was when his enemies from the boxing gym came looking for revenge at my fried rice stall and stabbed a knife into my heart. The blade missed by a centimeter, Colin, but he went berserk when he arrived. He simply couldn't accept the fact that I had perished beneath the waves. Struggling to get up to search for me again, it's impossible. She was about to marry me soon. Nancy would never take her own life. Was she threatened by someone? Notify them to investigate. Go. Before he could finish speaking, the butler hurried over. Trembling as he bowed his head to deliver his report, "President, the salvage team recovered a wreckage from the seabed. DNA tests confirm a 99% match with Miss Nancy. Impossible. Nancy can't be dead. Get out, all of you, get out." The tablet was Colin smashed against his head. Blood instantly gushed out. Colin, eyes bloodshot and face twisted with rage, terrified everyone present. He refused to go to the mortuary to identify the body. The arranged remains had already been cremated, and the urn was returned to the villa. Witnessing this scene, I finally lowered my gaze. "Colin, you should give up by now," at the very last second before the wedding ended. The video I had prepared with perfect timing began broadcasting across the entire internet. The video was delivered to Colin. His face turned deathly pale in an instant. In the video, he and Miranda were panting vigorously while exercising in the suite's walk-in closet. Meanwhile, I lay quietly next door, flipping through their photo album. All was tranquil in this fleeting moment. Bang! The tablet was thrown away. Colin couldn't help but vomit. He couldn't take it anymore. This disgusting scene made him nauseous. Who released this? Where did these videos come from? Colin roared violently. Everyone present fell deathly silent, not daring to even breathe. Nancy must have seen these videos. Does she know? Colin stood up in a panic and ran out in a fluster. He seemed certain that I wasn't dead, searching all over Harbor City for me. The shack where I used to live with Dad, the shop owner next to our stall, the orphanage I often visited, the pork vendor Ajo whom I often buy groceries from. Colin, still haven't found Shuey yet. Nearly all the market vendors knew Colin. With each inquiry, Colin's face grew a shade paler. I never expected him to be so unwilling to give up. Just half a month later, he searched every possible place he could think of that might be connected to me, even making repeated, tireless trips abroad by plane. He combed through every country I'd ever mentioned wanting to visit. These past 2 weeks, Colin has been rapidly losing weight. His jawline has become sharp enough to cut. Those eyes that used to light up with a smile at the mere mention of me have turned gloomy once again. As the year-end approaches, the port area has become bustling and grand. Colin finally stepped into the villa. He hadn't returned home for an entire month. The moment he entered, he froze in shock. The entire villa, not a single thing remained that was connected to me. The enormous group photo in the living room had been shattered, lying broken in scattered pieces. Colin grew paler by the second. He frantically rushed into the bedroom. The nightstand was completely empty. I had taken that family portrait away. The photo of me and Dad was gone, leaving only his solo portrait covered in dust, discarded in the corner of the bed. "Nancy, you don't want me anymore." Colin's eyes instantly turned bloodshot. He picked up the photo in a daze, laughing and crying simultaneously. "You can't be dead, you just don't want me anymore." As he spoke, his wretched tears came gushing out. He walked into the study in a daze, intending to put away the photographs, but then he saw a box on the desk. There was still a note left on top. Nancy's wedding gift to me. The handwriting on the note was thin and frail. The edges were crumpled, with a few dried water stains left behind. "Colin, wishing you a happy marriage. Goodbye." Colin stood frozen in place. He remained standing for a long time. Finally gathering his courage, he slowly opened the box. There was only a thin stack of medical reports and a phone inside. Colin used almost all his strength to pick up the diagnostic papers. It clearly stated that my hearing had been restored. As for the time, it was a year ago. The piece of paper in his hand fluttered to the ground. Colin began gasping for air, like a man about to drown, falling into the sea, plunging into the abyss. My phone lights up. Colin mustered the last of his strength and murmured, "Nancy wouldn't be so cruel. She must have left behind her destination." I used to love taking photos most of all, but the phone is old. A 2008 Nokia stuffed with old photos I couldn't bear to delete. This phone was bought for me by Colin when he earned his first paycheck. The photo album was once filled with 20 years of our memories, now wiped completely clean. Every birthday we celebrated together, going to see Dad together, group photos with the fried rice stall and our customers, Colin wearing a suit for the first time, Nancy, all thumbs when trying to tie a tie, Colin, grinning like a fool on proposal day, Nancy, beaming with happiness wearing that enormous diamond ring. Everything was gone. In its place were countless scenes of Miranda and him behind me. Next door, separated from me by just a wall, engaging in their illicit affair. In every perspective, that tightly clenched hand was visible. It was Nancy who took the photos. At last, the owner of the video was found. Colin's first reaction wasn't overwhelming anger. Instead, it was despair and agony. Like a dying man exhaling his last breath, he finally remembered. The night before the wedding, as he was about to leave, the despair and calm on my face, calmly, as if I had known something all along. Colin recalled painfully, the first betrayal of Nancy was on her birthday. I was drugged by a business rival at the cocktail party. Nancy ran a high fever that night. In agony, I impulsively grabbed Miranda and pushed her into the private room. I only wanted her to help alleviate my suffering. I never intended to have any deeper interaction with her. In my dazed state, she took the initiative to remove her clothes. When I woke up again, I realized I hadn't returned home all night. With used wrappers scattered at the foot of the bed, Miranda was very considerate. She had already packed up everything and left alone. That was the first time I lied to Nancy. Later, I was taken to a gathering in the basement level. I was terrified by the scene, suffering from severe mental illness. I became violent and cruel. I often unconsciously hurt people while in bed. The pain in my heart had nowhere to vent, but I didn't want to hurt Nancy. Miranda became that replacement. I've lost count of how many times it's been. My heart has already grown numb. Miranda is nothing more than a toy to me. I thought my heart still belonged only to Nancy. It was pure, but when I saw those videos, I realized how filthy I was. Nancy said at the moment she accepted me, "Colin, if you betray me, I'll leave you without hesitation. I'd rather die than spend the rest of our days tormenting each other." At that time, I thought she couldn't hear me. I could hide everything. Even thinking about seeing a psychologist after marriage, slowly quitting the fears in my heart, these bad habits, I thought there was still time. Nancy would never know. Nancy is like me, yet unlike me. At least I know who my biological parents are. Nancy was abandoned in a dumpster in the shantytown right after birth. It was Dad who found her while collecting scrap. She was abandoned once. She said she would never let herself be abandoned again in this lifetime. She kept her word. She left me instead. Colin stared intently at the two words I had written, "Goodbye." That stab wound his enemy had inflicted on Nancy's heart years ago seemed to pierce his own chest now. The pain was excruciating. He collapsed with a thud. I watched his bloodless face in the video. My eyes suddenly grew moist. Tears flowed uncontrollably, like a breached dam. The butler rushed into the study shouting, "The master has fainted." He was rushed to the emergency room. I stared intently at the screen, my hands trembling uncontrollably. Even though I hated him so much, we've depended on each other for 20 years. I don't want him to die either. I have no family left. Colin has developed a condition called broken heart syndrome. During episodes, one doesn't completely faint, yet can feel the excruciating pain in the sternum every moment, as if the heart were shattering. Can distinctly hear the sound of a heart breaking. My posted video Colin was withdrawn from processing. After spreading across the internet for a month, it began to rapidly escalate. Harbor City media outlets seized the trending topic and sensationalized it. Women across Harbor City tore him apart with scathing criticism. The burning obsession they once had turned into equally intense disdain. Dwight's employees tried every means to restore the president's reputation. Colin took the initiative to post the truth of the matter using his own account. The whole city was in an uproar. It turned out that Nancy was the one who had taken in the orphans, originally. Colin before he achieved fame and success. Nancy supported him for 20 years. They weathered storms together through all these years. Colin has hurt the woman he loves most so many times. Even on the day I jumped into the sea, he had already tasted the wedding night with another woman in a wedding dress. Colin's company shares plummeted, collaborations dried up one after another, but he simply had no time to spare. Distraught, he searched every corner of the only villa I'd ever lived in, looking for any trace of me. Yet Nancy's resolve was absolute. This was no joke. The entire villa contained not a single thing that had anything to do with me. Colin one night suddenly rushed into the garden in ecstatic excitement, only to find nothing left on the ground but a charred black tree trunk. "Where's my orange tree? Who did this? Call the gardener." Colin's face turned as black as coal, his entire body trembling uncontrollably. The butler answered with trepidation, "Sir, this orange tree was burned down by Miss Nancy. She gave the gardener a settlement fee and sent him back to his hometown." Nancy, you could show concern even for a gardener you'd never met before, securing his future for him. Colin clutched his chest, sitting dazedly beneath the orange tree, for a long moment. He couldn't regain his composure until Miranda rushed over, her trembling voice carrying a barely perceptible note of delight. "President, Nancy has sold the Rose Manor. How could it be?" Colin stood up in despair, his face drained of color. The Rose Manor was Colin's most precious gift to me in this lifetime. We had originally made a promise. After marriage, we moved into the estate. Colin would legitimize all the businesses and live a peaceful life with me forever. But all of this, is gone now. Notify them to buy back Rose Manor at any cost. Miranda changed her expression, turned around and sent a message. The phone I left behind suddenly lit up. Colin looked up. Deaf bastard, whether you're really dead or faking it, you'll never return to the CEO's side in this lifetime. What followed were 2 photographs. In the photos, Colin was embracing Miranda as they slept. Miranda's wedding dress half slipped off. It was the night before the wedding. Colin opened the text message interface with bloodshot eyes. Turns out, over the past year, Miranda had been sending me countless provocative messages like this intermittently. I never replied, but I read every single one. Colin threw his phone and suddenly grabbed Miranda by the throat. I was going to leave you for Nancy to deal with, but you bitch, harming her behind my back, you bitch. Miranda was nearly suffocating, her neck already making a cracking sound. Colin suddenly let go. Watching Miranda gasping for breath in such a disheveled state, he lowered his eyes, his voice as cold as a sharp blade. Kala Biao, send her to Southeast Asia. Miranda's pupils suddenly dilated. She screamed in terror, I'm not asking to go to Southeast Asia. President, please, I was wrong. I'll apologize to Miss Nancy. I can't go to Southeast Asia. I'm pregnant with your child. But Colin seemed unwilling to give up yet. Miranda thought she was saved. And a look of joy flashed across her face. President, I don't want anything. I'll give birth to the child and leave on my own. Colin waved his hand expressionlessly. Several familiar faces silently approached her. They whisked her away in an instant. Seeing this, I've lost all interest in watching any further, yet Colin seems unwilling to give up. He can't find me. He actually posted an apology video across the entire internet. Not only did he admit to disclosing everything and accepted all the blame, but he also told a long story, everything that Colin and I have been through over these past 20 years, that's all. The whole of Harbor City was in an uproar. The discussions among people were boiling over, so it turns out Colin was the heartless one all along. Should have picked up a stray dog instead of him back then. Colin did everything he could. I searched every possible corner I could find. I even offered a hefty global reward for any information about me, but half a year passed, still. There was no news about me whatsoever. Colin abandoned his company and spent his days drowning his sorrows in bars. He even moved out of the villa, bought back the shack we once lived in and returned there. Every day, he woke up in that narrow little bed, holding the birthday gift I gave him the year I found him, a tattered old bear I sewed myself. He was utterly heartbroken like this. The days passed by in a daze, until Colin's friend called him. Colin, come to the bar, we've got news about Nancy. Colin became a different person, rushing over without even changing his clothes. He pushed the door open. Where is Nancy? Where's Nancy? I knew she wasn't dead. Colin laughed and cried simultaneously, completely overwhelmed with immense joy. Everyone present looked at him with indescribable expressions. Colin waited for a long time. The private room door suddenly swung open. A group of simply dressed girls entered. Each one bore some resemblance to me. Are you fucking playing with me? Colin smashed his glass, his expression instantly turning vicious. The girls shrank back in fear, not daring to speak. Colin's braver friend coughed awkwardly. Colin, everyone just sees you're in too much pain, finding some substitutes to play with. A deaf person doesn't need to turn themselves into neither human nor ghost. You like the Nancy type. If these don't work, just keep looking. Someone will always resemble her. Colin stared at the scene before him. Suddenly reminded of those moments with Miranda, he vomited instantly. Everyone froze in shock. Colin's heart shrank with remorse in that moment. He leaned against the sofa, muttering to himself, Nancy, what was I thinking? How could I look for a substitute? After all the hurtful things I've done to you, it's only right that you'd leave me. I'm too dirty. Colin, just try it. Look, this one looks the most like her. Staring at the girl his friend had pulled before him, those familiar eyes and brows, Colin suddenly went mad. He kicked the speaking man hard. Who told you to come here? Get the hell out. I don't need a substitute. I only want Nancy. Colin frantically smashed everything in the private room, his eyes bloodshot as he grabbed these friends by their collars. He had reverted to that 15-year-old boy who fought ruthlessly underground, by the time he regained his senses. The girls in the private room had long fled in terror. The ground was littered with bruised and battered people. All right, we'll stop looking. Colin, don't be rash. Watching as Colin picked up a liquor bottle, they kept apologizing in fear. Broken glass littered the floor. Colin walked out of the private room with sober clarity. The midnight streets pulsed with pedestrian traffic, couples clustered in pairs outside the bar entrance. Colin only wanted to escape. In his frantic rush to leave, he bumped into a girl. Just as he turned to apologize, He saw a familiar figure walking away, Nancy. He suddenly grabbed the girl's shoulders, startling her into a scream. Wrong person. Colin apologized in a daze. The girl took him for a drunken vagrant and didn't bother to argue. Turning to leave, Colin returned alone to the shack. The butler was making his 100th phone call. He finally answered. Any news about Nancy these days? Colin could only say this one thing. The butler sighed. Sir, not yet. Beep, beep, beep. Only a dial tone remained on the phone. Nancy, where on earth are you? Colin stared at my face on his phone's lock screen. His eyes, already swollen from crying, grew moist again. The year was drawing to a close. New Year's Eve. After Colin paid an exorbitant price, he finally obtained a clue that might be related to me. He searched across the globe, through Harbor City, yet never considered mainland China. His father's hometown identity was uncovered by him, in Yuqing. A joyous day when everyone in the city reunites. Colin was all alone. He found his way to the mainland. What would you like to eat? We've got fried rice, fried noodles, pan-fried dumplings, everything you could want. Colin made his way through the bustling crowd, the soliciting boss. At first glance, I spotted that familiar figure. I stood before the stir-fried rice noodle stall. Flames erupted everywhere. The familiar aroma of fried rice made Colin's eyes redden. Nancy. After leaving Colin, I sold the diamond ring he gave me and came to my father's hometown for the first time. So this is where he learned his craft. The familiar aroma wafted through the entire street. I rented a stall here and continued selling fried rice. The young couple from the company next door comes every night. One fried rice with 2 sausages, no spice. The girl who lives on the street corner always comes alone to eat. She gets off work very late. Sometimes she's so tired she almost falls asleep while eating. Everyone is living their lives earnestly. Sometimes I watch those young couples quarrel, clearly giving each other the cold shoulder, yet still holding hands when they leave. The little girl who helped me would always hand me a tissue at that moment. Big sister, why are you crying? Was I crying? I don't know what came over me. When I first moved in here, I suffered from sleepless nights, night after night. Colin gave me that bracelet I'm still wearing. Back then he was skinny and small, and called me big sister. This bracelet was something he secretly collected bottles to save up for and buy when he was in school, without me knowing, just worthless plastic beads. It cost him 50 yuan. To this day, I still remember how his eyes sparkled when he gave it to me. Sis, all the girls in our class wear them. You should have some too. Colin later gave me many pieces of jewelry, priceless, one-of-a-kind treasures. I didn't take any of them with me. The only thing he took was this bracelet. Every time I wake up startled in the night, I realize belatedly, father is gone. I am alone again. I shouldn't think of him, nor should I hate him. I just don't love him anymore. So when I see Colin this very moment, my eyes still couldn't help but turn red. Nancy, Colin, just like the day I found out he was fighting in underground matches behind my back, standing nervously in front of me. I sighed. Have a seat. Half a minute later, a plate of fried rice with 2 eggs was placed before him. It's exactly the same as 20 years ago. Little brother, no matter what happens, you must eat well. I heard the cruelest words of my life. Nancy doesn't want me anymore. She calls me little brother, just like before. I shovel fried rice into my mouth in big mouthfuls. These past few months, I ate my first full meal, yet I felt so empty inside. The fried rice was too salty. Nancy always treated me like a younger brother. I pursued her for 10 years, but now, everything has reverted to the starting point. Nancy is someone who never regrets a decision once made. These past 20 years, she never changed. Are you moving away? Will I never be able to find you again? I gazed at her profile. Elder sister didn't speak. She only smiled. A clear, sunny day. How suddenly the rain began to fall. The end. Story 2. Reborn on the day my husband is critically ill. I immediately went to a private reproductive institution to replace my husband's frozen sperm. The hospital notified me to confirm the body. I took my husband's almost stiff hand and pressed his fingerprint on the equity transfer document. As the funeral was about to end, my husband's first love arrived with a lawyer and the will. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. The doctor issued a critical illness notice. According to Stephen's wishes, family members took turns to enter the ward to see him for the last time. When my in-laws came out of the ward crying, Stephen's personal assistant Mick closed the door. Madam, Mr. Stephen said he couldn't bear to let you see him in his final state. You don't have to go in. My mother-in-law wiped her tears and advised, Mia, Mom knows you and your husband are deeply in love. Stephen also can't bear to see you sad. Just listen to him. My father-in-law said firmly, this is also his last wish. Don't be unreasonable. Seeing the closed hospital room door, my heart trembled, and my body turned cold. I never thought that Stephen, who was praised for loving his wife so much, would be a complete fraud. How could he say he couldn't bear to part with me and didn't want to leave? It was just to avoid me, secretly meeting his ex-girlfriend Jade, who had just returned from abroad, to tell her about his last affairs. I truly believed that Stephen was afraid of hurting me, and I knelt outside the hospital room, crying and begging him to let me in for one last visit. I knelt there for 5 hours until his heart stopped, but the hospital room door was never opened. I bear sorrow and regret. Forcing myself to handle Stephen's funeral arrangements. As the funeral was coming to an end, Jade came in with Stephen's will and the lawyer. The lawyer announced on the spot that Stephen had frozen his sperm at a private reproductive clinic. The will stated that Stephen's frozen sperm could only be used by Jade, and his property and company shares would be inherited by his child. I was still in shock when my in-laws jumped out to accuse me, after 5 years of marriage. You still refuse to have children, dragging it out until my son dies. You evil woman, you just want to ensure that the Stephen family dies out. Our family has treated you well. If you want to stop Jade from having children, I will crash into this morning hall today. My in-laws, in tears, blamed all the faults on me. But it is clearly Stephen who doesn't want children. I even secretly punctured the little umbrella to leave a legacy for the Stephen family, and I already had a posthumous child in my belly. My loud explanations were drowned out by the accusations from relatives. How could Stephen treat you so well? And you still refuse to have a child? You must be a shrew at home, only daring to leave a legacy for yourself after your husband dies. How selfish. The one who should die is you. The enraged relatives drove me out of the funeral. I returned home in a daze, but encountered a car accident halfway. Before dying, Jade, sitting in another car, brushed past me. I clearly heard her harsh voice. Only I can bear his child. You are not worthy. It was then that I realized Jade had heard what I said. She was afraid that the child in my womb would take the inheritance, so she staged the car accident to put me to death. When I opened my eyes again, I returned to Stephen on the day he was critically ill. Since I have the chance to live again, I must turn the situation around and reclaim everything that belongs to me. If you really want to see Stephen one last time, why not kneel down and beg him? Maybe he will soften his heart, my mother-in-law suggested with her eyes downcast. In my previous life, I listened to her words and knelt for 5 hours. And even in death, my knees still ached painfully. At the funeral, the in-laws were not surprised by Jade's arrival, and they twisted the facts to speak on Jade's behalf. Obviously they had already known. My mother-in-law has always bullied me because my parents are dead and I have no support. Now, these seemingly considerate words are clearly meant to take the opportunity to humiliate me. I forced out some tears and shook my head sadly. Dad is right. This is Stephen's last wish. As his wife, I should fulfill it. After saying that, I turned around and left. Stop, my father-in-law called me back. Where are you going? My son only has a few hours left. Who will take care of the funeral arrangements if you leave? Rely on us old people. I choked and said, I really can't bear to watch him leave. Don't worry, I will come back immediately if anything changes. My mother-in-law whispered to my father-in-law, let her go. Inside, the voice suddenly stopped. I didn't need to look to know that the in-laws had switched to eye contact. Yes. There is also a Jade in the ward. I can only leave so they can say goodbye without fear. Sure enough, my father-in-law said, don't go too far. I hemmed and left. After leaving the hospital, I immediately navigated to Stephen's private reproductive facility where he stored frozen sperm. I pushed the door open and walked in. A young man was sitting at the front desk with a name tag that read, Payne. I stepped forward and said, my husband stored frozen sperm here. Can you help me check? Payne didn't look up and said, sorry, we don't offer that service. As expected, I continued, I want to see your manager. Payne finally looked at me, his tone impatient. I am the one. As I said, we can't check. I raised an eyebrow. Oh really? What if I buy your organization? Payne instantly widened his eyes. What, you? Are you crazy? I smiled and said, make me an offer. Payne said with shining eyes, 5 million. I pulled out a chair and sat down leisurely. I checked. Your organization has been operating for 3 years, using the most advanced technology in the world, ensuring a sperm survival rate of over 90%. Unfortunately, the fees are too high, and it has been operating at a loss since it started. Unfortunately, the sperm of signed members is stored here, so you can't just close it down. Payne rolled his eyes. The cost is 1 million. It can't go any lower. Deal. After the payment, Payne retrieved the member information. After finding Stephen, I continued to look down, my gaze stopping on an English name. Payne explained with a laugh, he is an African who committed a crime in the country. Before he was caught, he came here to leave a seed, thinking that if there was a chance, he could leave a legacy. I smirked. That's the one. Just out of the lab, the phone rang. After connecting, my mother-in-law's crying voice came through. Mia, Stephen is gone. The doctor said we must sign to confirm the body. You need to come back quickly. I immediately responded, I'll be back right away, Mom, you all take care of yourselves. After hanging up, I regained my composure and drove to the company. After printing the equity transfer document, I rushed to the hospital without stopping. The company was established by me and Stephen after we graduated from university, each holding 40% of the shares, with the remaining 20% held proportionally by the other 5 investors. In the last life, Jade appeared at the funeral with a lawyer. I didn't know until the day before getting our marriage license. Stephen had secretly bought the remaining shares, owning as much as 60%. Once Jade has the child, she will inherit Stephen's shares, and the whole company will be under Jade's control. The hospital, the ward was in tears. Seeing me come in, my mother-in-law rushed over and slapped me. Why did you just come? Get down on your knees quickly. The crying in the ward became a bit quieter, and everyone's eyes turned toward me, afraid of missing any spectacle. I bear the pain and anger, said, I'm sorry, I was too rushed just now, I had a car accident, that's why I'm late. Everyone then noticed a patch of blood on my knee. Immediately, an elder said, oh, your knee is so injured, let the child not kneel, you should have checked before hitting her, it's really not proper. My mother-in-law was stunned for a moment, then quickly changed the subject, I'm just too anxious. You hurry up and sign the body confirmation, don't make my son wait too long. After signing, I cried over Stephen's body, and kept crying all the way to the morgue door. The body needs to stay here for a night, it will be taken to the funeral home tomorrow. The doctor tactfully said, please accept my condolences, you cannot enter here. As I saw everyone leaving, I raised my tearful eyes and said, Doctor, I didn't get to see my husband for the last time. Can you let me stay with him alone for a while, just 5 minutes? The doctor hesitated for a moment but still agreed and quietly walked to the corner of the stairs. I turned my back to the camera and hugged Stephen to say goodbye softly. But my hand pulled out the equity transfer document from my clothes. I lifted Stephen's almost stiff fingers, first dabbed them in red ink on my knee, and then pressed them onto the signature line of the equity transfer document. After doing all this, I called the doctor and immediately turned to leave. At the hospital entrance, Mick came over and handed me a list. Madam, this is Mr. Stephen's requests for the funeral that he made while he was alive. You need to prepare for it. Stephen was meticulous and picky, and his requirements for the funeral were very high. In my previous life, I spent several sleepless nights preparing everything according to the list, just to fulfill his last wishes. But in the end, it became a witness to my shame. I didn't reach out, but looked at Mick and said, if I remember correctly, you've been following Stephen for 4 years since you came to the company. Mick was taken aback and replied, yes. I sighed and said, you know, Stephen is no longer here. Where should we place you in the company? Mick hurriedly said, Mr. Stephen instructed me before he left, saying I should be in charge of the administration department. I looked up and asked, really, have you been appointed yet? Not yet. Mick widened his eyes in shock, gripping the list tightly. Mrs. Mia, I'm sorry, I can prepare these things myself. I smiled, picked up the list, and tore it to shreds. There's no need to prepare these. You go contact the funeral home and change the funeral specifications to the lowest standard. The person is dead, there's no need to waste so much money. Mick was stunned and didn't dare to respond. I approached him, curling my lips. Actually, I feel quite sorry for you. You have done so much for Stephen, but even at the end, he still has to guard against you, holding back your appointment, making you do your utmost to help Jade rise to power. But have you ever thought about it? 10 months is enough for earth-shaking changes. When that time comes, where will you go? Mick had his pupils constrict in shock, stepping back 2 steps. Mrs. Mia, you already know. I put away my smile. I know far more than you can imagine. I'm giving you a chance now. Pledge your loyalty to me. After the funeral, I will immediately appoint you as the manager of the administrative department, plus 10% of the company's shares. Think it over. Give me a reply as soon as possible. After saying that, I turned and left. Just as I got in the car, Mick's message came in. Ms. Mia, the funeral arrangements have been changed as per your request. The funeral arrangements are all left to Mick to handle. During Stephen's year of illness, I hardly slept a full night, and it took me 2 days to recover. On the day of the funeral, I arrived at the funeral home right on time. Following Mick's map, I turned east and west to find the cramped little chapel. Inside it was noisy. With many guests crowded together, sweating profusely and waiting impatiently, my in-laws had dark expressions and did not dare to look up. I squeezed in and stood next to my in-laws. As soon as she saw me, my mother-in-law glared at me and raised her hand to slap me. This time I was prepared and grabbed her arm, pushing her hard. My mother-in-law stumbled and fell to the ground, grimacing in pain. I was in tears, hysterically saying, "Mom, what are you doing? Do you have to humiliate me in front of my deceased husband?" The hall instantly fell silent. My mother-in-law got up and said, "I humiliate you? Clearly, you are the one humiliating my son. My son is a dignified big boss of a company. And you arranged this kind of place. You have no shame. We Stevens family still have some dignity." My father-in-law was so angry he was gasping for breath. "This is really outrageous." I sobbed a little and choked out, "Mom and Dad, you really misunderstood. This is Stephen's arrangement before he passed. He said there was no one important, so there was no need for a luxurious funeral." As soon as I finished speaking, the hall became noisy. We took leave to attend the funeral, and it turns out Mr. Stephen looks down on us. What a joke. I even lent him money when he started his business. After all, he is a big boss. How could he look up to us? Hearing everyone's curses, my father-in-law couldn't hold his face. Impossible. My son is not that kind of person. I silently glanced at Mick. Mick immediately stood up. It is indeed Mr. Stephen's arrangement. Mick is Stephen's loyal dog. No one would doubt his words. The in-laws were choked. The curses in the hall grew louder, and some even turned to leave. At this moment, I deeply bowed to the guests. On behalf of Stephen the First, apologized to everyone, and I ask for your patience. After the funeral, I will personally compensate everyone. Thank you. Stephen's reputation can be ruined, but the company's cannot, and mine even less. The guests calmed down. Forget it. Since Mrs. Mia has said so, let's just endure it. I remember that the company was started by those two back in the day. I see. It seems Stephen is being supported by Mia in how he handles things. Public opinion has begun to tilt. I straightened up and said, "Let's begin." The funeral was proceeding in an orderly manner, but the atmosphere was somewhat strange. No one was sad, no one was crying, and even at the farewell to the body, very few people came forward. I coldly glanced at the Stephen in the ice coffin, then withdrew my gaze, not wanting to look again. The funeral was about to end, and I was preparing to see off the guests. A cold voice came in. "Dear friends and family, please stay. There is something that still needs your witness." Jade was dressed in black, wearing a white flower, and appeared with a lawyer and the will. I raised my eyes slightly, and my heart began to race with excitement. The good show is finally about to begin. A year ago, Mr. Stephen stored frozen sperm at the institution. The will states that the frozen sperm is only for Ms. Jade to use, and the property and shares of the company under Mr. Stephen's name will be inherited by Mr. Stephen's children. The lawyer paused for a second, put down the will in his hand, and continued, according to the information provided by Mr. Stephen. He acquired the remaining 20% shares of the company the day before he registered his marriage with Mrs. Mia, and the 60% shares he currently holds are all premarital property, which will be divided according to the will. As soon as the lawyer finished speaking, the in-laws jumped out in time. "After 5 years of marriage, you still refuse to have children, dragging it out until my son dies. You wicked woman, you just want to make sure that the Stephen family dies out. We the Stephen family have not treated you poorly. If you want to stop Jade from having children, I will crash into this coffin today." After saying that, the mother-in-law pretended to crash into the ice coffin. However, unlike in the past, no friends or relatives stepped forward to stop her, and no one even spoke. The hall fell into an eerie silence. Jade glanced and stepped forward to stop her mother-in-law. "Aunt, don't worry, I grew up with Stephen. No matter whether I can inherit the estate or not, I will help with this. Stephen would never dare to mention having children in front of Mia. She must not want to suffer the pain of childbirth. I will take the burden for her, and she will definitely agree." The father-in-law snorted coldly. "She has no right to disagree. This is my son's will, concerning the Stephen family lineage. It has nothing to do with Mia." The relatives of the Stephen family still stood up. "Mia, the matter of lineage is serious. Since you don't want to give birth, and others are willing to, you shouldn't stop it. Yes, the Stephen family has been passed down for 5 generations. It cannot end here. It is reasonable for the descendants of the Stephen family to inherit personal property. I have heard that after one spouse dies, the marital relationship is automatically dissolved. Mia indeed has no right to stop it. I ignored these words and looked at the lawyer. Lawyer Peter, I want to confirm one thing. Can my husband's will specify the share of the stock? The lawyer was taken aback, picked up the will and read it carefully, then replied, not specified, but Mr. Stephen provided proof of ownership, so that's how it is. I sighed inwardly, looking up at everyone. I do not oppose Jade giving birth to the child of the Stephen family, nor will I stop the will from taking effect. My mother-in-law scoffed. At least you know how to be sensible. My father-in-law, with his hands behind his back, arranged. Jade, during these 10 months of pregnancy, you must take good care of her health. If there are any issues with her or the child, you will be fully responsible. As for the company matters, you need to guide Jade so she can quickly familiarize herself with the company's operations. Once my grandson is born, as soon as the shares are transferred, she must immediately take over the management of the company. Jade gazed with shining eyes, filled with greed and pride. Thank you, uncle. I will definitely not let you down. I will give birth to a son for the Stephen family and will do my utmost to manage the company well. Wait a minute, I interrupted, you must be mistaken. Jade's son can only inherit 1% of the shares. Jade was taken aback for a moment, then sighed, Mia sister, I know it's hard to fully accept this, but saying such baseless things is useless. Lawyer Peter agreed. We have also verified with the business department that Mr. Stephen indeed holds 60% of the shares in your company. My in-laws immediately began to accuse. Everyone heard what you just said. Don't go back on your word and embarrass yourself. You still have 40% of the shares. Don't be too greedy. I silently took out the share transfer document from my bag. Half a month ago, Stephen had already transferred 59% of the shares to me. I had planned to go through the change of registration after the funeral, but I didn't expect this to happen. Peter, the lawyer said that the will didn't specify the share ratio, so Jade child can only inherit the remaining 1%. Don't believe me, you can ask Mick. Mick suppressed the shock in his eyes and said, yes, half a month ago Mr. Stephen asked me to prepare the share transfer document. That's impossible. Jade widened her eyes and reached out to grab the share transfer document. I moved aside and handed the share transfer document to Peter, the lawyer. Jade shot me a glance and anxiously looked at Peter, the lawyer. Please check if it's a forgery. Lawyer Peter glanced through and swallowed hard. The share transfer agreement was established before the will, and the signature is indeed Mr. Stephen's handwriting. If the fingerprint is real, Mr. Stephen's child can only inherit 1%. After working with Stephen for so many years, I can easily imitate his handwriting. As for the fingerprint, it can't be fake at all. I remained calm. You can definitely test the fingerprint. I have a clear conscience. The in-laws exchanged glances, wanting to say something but unable to. I looked at the stunned Jade and said sincerely, Jade, I don't know what promises Stephen made to you, but as you said, you will help the Stephen family in any case, so please keep your promise. The crowd began to discuss. Why does this sound strange? But I just heard clearly. This lady Ms. Jade said that regardless of whether she can inherit, she will help have children. I heard it too. Why isn't she speaking? Could it be that she heard she only has 1% of the shares and regrets it now? What a double standard. Fortunately, the company didn't fall into this person's hands. After hearing these words, the in-laws became anxious. Mother-in-law held Jade. Jade, you must not regret it. The Stephen family cannot be without descendants. Father-in-law said anxiously. Stephen told us that you are the most important person in his life. It's just having a child. And if you don't want to raise it, we will raise it for you. Jade lowered her eyes, discreetly pulling her hand away from her mother-in-law's grip, and slowly stepped back. It seems she is not planning to agree. This won't do. I can't waste that 1 million, I said. You don't need to worry about the lives of you and your son at all. Besides the company shares, Stephen has assets worth at least $50 million. In other words, as long as you give birth to Stephen's child, this money will belong to you. Jade suddenly raised her head. Her eyes instantly brightened. Uncle and aunt, rest assured, I will keep my promise and bear a child for Stephen's family. Jade fell for it. The in-laws were full of emotion. Stephen's relatives also praised Jade, but there were many perceptive people on site, and everyone exchanged glances with an ambiguous expression. After the farce, the funeral ended smoothly. I gave each guest present a compensation payment as promised. The relatives and friends didn't say anything. Today, there were also many company employees and partners present. The company's future operations and development will certainly rely on their support after the body is cremated. The in-laws want to take Stephen's ashes. Naturally, I won't stop them. On the way back, I glanced at the driver Mick and said, you did a great job today. Your appointment letter will come down tomorrow. and after the equity change, I will give you 10%. Mick took a heavy breath for a second. Thank you, Mrs. Mia. Where are you going now? I closed my eyes. To the hospital. I need to have a minor surgery. The unborn child in my belly also needs to be dealt with. The handwriting and fingerprints are all fine, and I am Stephen's widow, so the equity change registration went smoothly. I rightfully sat in the largest office of the company. News came from Payne that Jade took the frozen sperm and got pregnant through IVF. The in-laws were overjoyed, taking care of Jade closely. My mother-in-law even came to the company and warned me not to take any action, or she wouldn't let me off the hook. I think she is sick, so I had someone kick her out. 10 months passed in the blink of an eye. That day, I went to the hospital to pick up medicine and unexpectedly ran into my in-laws on the way down. I glanced at the delivery room where screams were constantly coming from, and I understood in my heart, Jade, it's time for her to give birth. I suddenly became interested and walked over. My in-laws looked as if they were facing a great enemy, their expressions tense as they looked over. What are you doing here? I warn you, Jade is about to give birth. So don't even think about laying a hand on my grandson. I held back my laughter. How could that be? After all, I was Stephen's wife. Coming to see his child is just fulfilling my duty. My mother-in-law tugged at the corner of her mouth. I think you're just jealous. You want to have my son's child but can't. The doctor said my grandson has long legs and arms. He will definitely be an athlete in the future. My father-in-law looked proud. This is all because of our Stephen family's good genes. When my grandson grows up, we must train him well. Who knows, our Stephen family might produce an Olympic champion. I really couldn't hold back my laughter anymore. My father-in-law shot a cold glance at me. What are you laughing at? I heard from the lawyer that Stephen's inheritance has a lot of real estate, and your name is on it. Once my grandson is born, you better hurry to divide it. Don't let it affect my grandson's education. My mother-in-law glared at me. If you dare to transfer the assets, we will definitely sue you. I laughed and said, don't worry, as long as Jade gives birth to Stephen's child, I won't touch any of that inheritance. My mother-in-law rolled her eyes. That goes without saying. My son has always loved Jade, which is why he would let her have children. You, truly pathetic. The grandfather laughed coldly. Back then, you and my son started a business together. My son married you just to win you over. Did you really think he loved you? I had already thought about this. Otherwise, Stephen, why would he always say he didn't want children, yet secretly left frozen sperm for Jade? Because of our marital relationship. Stephen the First have always been cooperating with him on company matters, and never suspected him. It was actually him who took advantage of me, secretly acquiring shares. Stephen feared me, schemed against me, but he never truly loved me. Fortunately, heaven is fair. Stephen got an incurable disease, and it gave me a chance to start over. As she was thinking, the screams from the delivery room suddenly stopped. The in-laws rushed forward excitedly. It's born, finally. Stephen's family has an heir. Oh, my child, you have finally fulfilled your wish and have a child with the one you love. Mom will definitely keep her promise and take good care of both of them. At this moment, the delivery room door opened. The nurse was holding a swaddled baby, looking strange. Who is Jade's family member? The grandparents immediately shouted, We are the child's grandparents. Let us see our precious grandson quickly. The nurse took a step back. Are you the parents of the child's father? The grandparents were anxious. Yes. What are you doing? Quickly give us our grandson. As the nurse handed over the swaddled baby, she reminded, you should be mentally prepared. This is Jade's child, soy sauce color. Small curly hair, thick lips, a typical African appearance. The grandparents' outstretched hands froze in mid-air, looking at the nurse in disbelief. Impossible. This is not our grandson. You must be mistaken. My son and Jade are both fairer than ordinary people. How could they possibly have such a child? The nurse helplessly said. There is only Jade in the delivery room. This is her child. She has fainted from exhaustion. If you have questions, wait until she wakes up to ask. You can take the child to the ward first. The mother needs to be observed for another hour. After saying that, the nurse handed the swaddled baby to the grandmother and turned to go inside. The grandparents looked carefully at the child in their arms, exchanging glances in confusion. I walked over, frowning. I suggest you get a paternity test. The grandmother's hands holding the child trembled slightly. It must be a mistake. How could this be? The grandfather's face turned pale. What do you mean? This cannot be Stephen's child. It must be that Jade is messing around outside, trying to get my son's inheritance. What a vicious woman. Seeing the murderous looks in their eyes, I quietly stepped back. It is easy to imagine what life will be like for Jade from now on. It's just that all of this is self-inflicted by her. if she hadn't sold her body for money, she wouldn't have given me the chance for revenge. From the lawyer, I learned that my father-in-law still took the child for a paternity test. The result is predictable. Jade's child has no relation to the Stephen family. Stephen's inheritance will enter the legal succession process. My in-laws and I will split 50 million, Jade will get nothing. 7 days later, I was at work when my assistant reported Jade wanted to see me. I thought for a moment and put down my pen. Let her in. Jade looked pale. Her body seemed very weak, but her eyes were filled with hatred. Mia, you have been reborn, right? My heart skipped a beat, but I tried hard to maintain my composure. I don't understand what you're talking about. Jade showed a creepy smile. You don't have to lie to me. I have been reborn too. In my previous life, there was no such thing as a stock transfer contract. 60% of the shares were mine. I even caused a car accident to kill you. You never lived to this day. I raised my eyebrows. Are you admitting that you are a murderer? Should I call the police? Jade had a twisted expression. Stop pretending to be confused. Stephen, did you tamper with the frozen sperm? I looked up. If you have evidence, go report it to the police. Don't go crazy here. I don't have to worry about this at all. At that time, I only sent money to Payne and did not actually acquire the reproductive agency. As long as the reproductive agency insists that the frozen sperm was provided by Stephen, there is no evidence against it. There is no evidence. And it is impossible to prove otherwise. Jade eyes red, you still pretend. I could have given birth to Stephen's child. Our child would have been white and cute. Definitely not that dark lump. It should be. No, it must be like that. Should be. Did she die before giving birth? Never getting to see that child. Stephen is also an idiot. Jade gritted her teeth. He said he couldn't forget me, that he always loved me, and wanted to give me everything. Why didn't he just give me the shares and inheritance instead of making me give birth to a child? I thought for a moment, could it be that Stephen was taking revenge? Jade froze. I continued. I heard about your story. You cheated on him. Stephen was forced to break up with you. Maybe he was holding a grudge against you, so he set a trap for you. That frozen sperm must have been specially collected by him, then stored in a fertility clinic under his own name. Jade widened her pupils, her body trembling involuntarily. No way. It's impossible, he said so sincerely before he died. How could he? Watching Jade gradually lose her mind, I immediately added fuel to the fire. Men, don't look at what he says, look at what he does. You all say Stephen doesn't love me, but he just happened to give me all the shares. The lawyer has already verified it. The handwriting and fingerprints are all his, so I believe that the one he loves must be me. Jade looked up, confused. You're lying to me, right? In my past life, there was no equity transfer document. All the shares are mine. I frowned. I think you should see a psychologist. You might not have been reborn, but rather have a delusional disorder. Delusional disorder. Jade stared blankly and collapsed onto the ground with a thud. I called my assistant. Show them out. After returning from the company, Jade's mental state worsened, gradually losing the ability to distinguish between her past life and the present. From time to time, she would hug her son and laugh foolishly, telling others that her son was going to inherit a huge fortune, and she was about to become rich. After the neighbors discovered it, they called the police, and Jade's parents took them back. Mick glanced at me. Mrs. Mia, Jade has already gone crazy. Is there still a need to investigate her secretly? I shook my head and said, no need. Even if Jade talks about the rebirth again, no one will believe it. I thought the matter was completely over. But unexpectedly, my in-laws came looking for me again. As soon as I came out of the community garage, I saw my in-laws squatting at the door. I frowned and picked up my phone to call the security, but my in-laws suddenly knelt down. Mia, it was all Mom's fault before. Mom shouldn't have mistreated you, and even less should she have hit you at every turn. It's all Mom's fault. Please forgive Mom. As she spoke, my mother-in-law raised her hand and slapped her own face. The force was not small, leaving a handprint on each side of her face, causing tears to come out from the pain. My father-in-law also cruelly slapped himself twice. Dad is also at fault, clearly knowing that Stephen didn't want to have children, yet still indiscriminately blamed you, and even helped that shameless woman bully you. It's all Dad and Mom's fault. What are you doing? I looked at both sides suspiciously. Where's the camera hidden? Are you trying to frame me for abusing the elderly again? My mother-in-law shook her head wildly. Absolutely not. We really know we're wrong. You're the one who truly cared for Stephen. We came here to see our grandson. My father-in-law's face was full of hope. We already know, when Stephen died, you were already pregnant. According to the dates, our grandson is almost half a year old. My mother-in-law suddenly bowed her head. Please have mercy on us, old couple. Let us see our grandson. My father-in-law wiped his tears. At least Stephen's family hasn't died out, ha ha ha. I couldn't help but laugh. You want to see your grandson? My in-laws immediately nodded. I mocked and pointed down. Then you can only see him in hell. The day Stephen was burned to ashes, I killed that child. My father-in-law suddenly widened his eyes. No way, how could you dare? How could you be so heartless? That was our Stephen's family only bloodline, you wicked woman. I'll kill you. Grandma jumped up and wanted to hit me. I sidestepped to avoid her, and the security guard who received the message arrived and immediately blocked Grandma. I frowned in disgust and said, "Don't let just anyone in from now on." The security guard pulled the two people, who were spitting filth, outside. Wait. I looked at Grandpa with a hint of melancholy. How could the Stephen family possibly die out? At your age, your skills are still sharp. Grandpa stopped howling, and a glimmer of understanding flashed in his eyes. Clearly realizing what I meant, Grandma was stunned for a moment and cursed loudly. Wu Quan, if you dare to let some wild woman have a child, I will perish with you. How selfish. The one who should die is you. Grandpa muttered with his head down. Exactly. Grandma lunged forward and grabbed Grandpa's face. The two immediately got into a fight. I smirked and turned to leave. It was already half a year later when I heard news from my in-laws again, in order to leave a legacy for Stephen's family. My father-in-law really went to find a woman to have a child. He searched around and actually found Jade's parents. At that time, Jade's mental state was getting worse, and she was also dragging along a mixed-race child. Jade's parents were raising their daughter and grandson, living a hand-to-mouth existence. I heard by chance that having a child could earn 2 million, so I contacted my father-in-law. When my father-in-law saw the crazy Jade, he didn't hesitate at all and forcefully took her to bed. Not long after, Jade successfully got pregnant. One day, Grandpa accompanied Jade for a prenatal checkup and accidentally bumped into the grandmother who was seeing a doctor. The grandmother looked at Jade with a swollen belly and immediately guessed what had happened. The grandmother shouted loudly in the hospital, demanding an explanation from Grandpa, and even tried to hit Jade. Grandpa could not bear it anymore, pushed the grandmother away, and immediately proposed divorce, protecting Jade and leaving. The grandmother was not willing to give up, pretended to agree to the divorce, and arranged a meeting with Grandpa. As soon as Grandpa got home, the grandmother lit the gas cylinder, and the two of them really died together. But Jade's parents, upon finding out they could not get the 2 million, immediately took their daughter to have an abortion. After reading the netizens' deep investigation into the explosive news, I felt completely indifferent. Evil people have their own evil fate. I and them have long been strangers. Mrs. Mia, here is today's schedule. Please check it. The assistant brought the schedule. I put down my phone and started a new day. End of text.